Welcome back to the Bad Influence podcast where we tackle the uncomfortable truths and dig into what truly drives self improvement. Today's episode is about something many of us avoid solitude. But it's not just being alone. I'm talking about spending time in solitude to truly understand yourself. There's a huge difference between being fucking lonely, which is a feeling of emptiness and isolation, and being in solitude, which is a state of being alone without feeling lonely. While loneliness can be painful, solitude is where we discover our true selves. Think about it. How much time do you spend with just your thoughts? Ooh, that's a good question, right? Well, here's the problem. In today's world, it's so easy to fill every empty moment with distractions, social media, TV, even just background noise. But in doing so, we miss out on one of the most critical aspects of growth, learning who we really are. And trust me, I know this firsthand. I've spent significant parts of my life in solitude, and it has shaped me in ways I never imagined. So, if you've been feeling lost, disconnected, or overwhelmed, this episode is for you. Today, we're going to talk about how solitude can help you gain clarity, process your emotions, and most importantly, understand yourself on a deeper level. You'll learn why it's essential to take that time, and I'll share how solitude became my greatest tool for growth. So, let's dive in, shall we? Here's the thing. Most people are afraid of being alone. We've been conditioned to think that constant connection and interaction are necessary for happiness, especially in today's world, right? But when you're constantly surrounded by people, distractions, and fucking noise, it becomes nearly impossible to reflect on your thoughts and emotions. Without that reflection, how can you grow? How can you figure out what's truly important to you? That's good questions, right? And I want to hear your answers as well. Because I see it all the time. People fill every waking moment with something. Scrolling through Instagram, binge watching Netflix, constantly texting. You're so focused on external stimuli that you rarely pause to check in with yourself. The problem is, if you don't spend time understanding your own mind, your thoughts and emotions start to control you rather than the other way around. And right now, that's happening a lot. Everybody's mad, everybody's angry, everybody's sad, everybody's going through just the emotions, right? But when you do this, you might find yourself constantly stressed, anxious, or unsure of why you feel the way you do. But here's the truth. Solitude is where growth happens. It's when you strip away all the external distractions that you finally have the space to confront what's going on inside. And while that might sound uncomfortable and sometimes even scary, it's the only way to really fucking understand yourself. If you never take the time to be alone, how will you ever know what truly drives you or what's holding you back? Nobody's going to give you those answers because nobody knows you that well, right? So, embracing solitude can lead to profound self-awareness and clarity, inspiring you to take the journey of self-discovery. Growing up, I spent a lot of time in solitude. Not by choice at first. My mom will be gone for days at a time, sometimes with her friends, sometimes with her boyfriend, leaving me alone for days, sometimes even a whole week, just me being by myself. I didn't have a choice but to get used to being by myself from a very young age. Very young, to be honest. At the time, it felt tough. It was rough. It was hard. But looking back, that solitude was a gift because I learned so much about myself during those moments, especially since this happened in Mexico, so I didn't have as many outside distractions like I had in the US. I didn't have a phone back then. I didn't have internet back then. We barely had cable, but when I was bored, I would just turn off the TV. I wouldn't even play video games. I would just sit and stare at the wall, coming up with random ideas, pretty much. Now, here in the States, I was barely in class in junior high and high school. So I was never really in school. And because of that, I used my street knowledge from Mexico. And here's what happened. Using that street knowledge and everything that I had learned back in Mexico, made me get used to being outside and being with friends or looking for a distraction way more than being in solitude. But back in Mexico, without anyone to talk to, without distractions, because my friends were living far away from where I live. It wasn't like a 5-minute walk. It was longer than that. So I had to confront my own thoughts. I realized that I'm naturally curious, but I also learned that unless something truly catches my attention, I won't engage with it. And that's the fucking truth. That's how I discovered what I'm passionate about, and it shaped my entire approach to life back then. I'm curious and passionate about getting to know people and see if they can figure out their problems and how they fix them. That's what I'm passionate about. That's why I'm always so observant. That's why I'm always so fucking curious. While I was doing some introspection during the pandemic, I remembered that amazing feeling of solitude like when I was in Mexico. If something doesn't align with my values or interests, I simply won't invest my time or energy into it. This practice of solitude became my go-to whenever I felt overwhelmed during the pandemic, which it happened a lot. I mean, everybody went through something and everybody processed it a different way, right? So if something was bothering me or if I was trying to figure out a solution to a problem, I would intentionally step away from everything and just sit with my thoughts. I will say to my wife, I need time alone. You can go with your mom or to your mom's house. You can go with your friends, wherever. I need time alone. No distractions, just me and my mind. Sometimes I will go for a walk in nature or find a quiet spot in a park. Other times, I will sit in a comfortable chair at home with no music or TV on. That's when I found the clarity I needed. It wasn't always easy, but it was always worth it. I still do this because it has helped me so much. And I find it funny. I think it's funny what I once thought was a disadvantage turned out to be one of my greatest strengths. Spending time in solitude not only helped me understand myself better, but also helped me navigate difficult situations and make better decisions. Oh, yes, it did. And it can do the same for anyone who's willing to embrace it. Solitude empowers you to make decisions that align with your values and interests. So, how exactly does solitude help you learn more about yourself? That's a good question. Let me give you my answer. It starts with giving yourself the fucking space to process your thoughts and emotions without external interference. When you're constantly interacting with others or distracted by technology, your mind is always reacting to something. But in solitude, you're forced to confront your thoughts directly. And that's when you start to realize things about yourself that you might have been ignoring or avoiding. You might learn that you're curious. You might learn that you're actually, quiet for a reason. Shit like that. Solitude also allows you to ask yourself the hard questions. When you're alone, you have the opportunity to dig deeper into why you feel the way you do or why certain things trigger you. Oh, that was the best part for me. I found a lot of my triggers because of solitude. That's something you can't do when you're always surrounded by noise, right? You need that quiet time to reflect and to truly listen to your inner voice. It's a time for introspection and self discovery, which is something that I love. And that's something that at one point, if you want to make the necessary changes in your life to get that will get you to the next level, you might have to do this. You might have to try it, and you're going to have to embrace it if you decide to try it. For me, writing has been a huge part of this process. When I'm in solitude, I take the time to write out what I'm struggling with or what I need to figure out. Because by putting it in on paper, I'm able to see the problem more clearly. Then I meditate on it. I try to step outside of myself and view the problem as if I were a third party. This helps me gain different perspectives and see solutions that weren't obvious before. And here's the key. Solitude isn't about isolating yourself or shutting out the world permanently. It's about creating intentional space for yourself. You have an intention, which is work on yourself, figure out things out about yourself or whatever you're dealing with. So it has to be intentional. It's about stepping away from the distractions long enough to hear your own thoughts, to reflect on your actions, and to figure out what you truly want, which is absolutely important. And without that space, it's easy to get lost in the noise of daily life. So, I encourage you to find a few moments of solitude in your day, whether it's a quiet walk, a few minutes of meditation, or simply sitting in a peaceful spot. Embrace the discomfort, and you might be surprised at what you discover about yourself. And you may be thinking, but what if being alone feels uncomfortable or even scary? That's a good question, and I get it, because I've been there. For a lot of people, the idea of sitting alone with their thoughts is terrifying, just like it was for me. We're so used to numbing ourselves with distractions that we forget how to actually sit with our emotions. But here's the thing. Discomfort is where growth happens. When you stop avoiding your thoughts and start facing them head on, that's when you start to make real progress. I've had countless moments where solitude felt uncomfortable at first. There were times when I didn't want to confront my feelings, when I wanted to escape into distractions. But I forced myself to sit with it. And every single time, I came out stronger on the other side. The fucking clarity and self-awareness that comes from solitude is worth the discomfort. Think about it. If you don't spend time understanding yourself, how can you expect to grow? How can you expect to improve your relationships, your career, or even your mental health? The more you know about yourself, the better equipped you are to handle whatever life throws your way. Solitude is the path to self-knowledge. So, if you've been avoiding alone time because it feels uncomfortable, I challenge you to give it a try. Start small. Maybe just a few minutes a day where you turn off all distractions and you sit with your thoughts. Over time, you'll find that solitude isn't something to fear. It's something to embrace. Now, let's talk about how you can start using solitude to learn more about yourself. Again, these are the steps that I took. My wife has done this, and it has helped her. Maybe it can help you. So first, make time for it. This might seem obvious, but in our busy lives, we often forget to carve out intentional time for solitude. Schedule it into your day, even if it's just 10 or 15 minutes at first. During that time, put away your phone, turn off the TV, and just sit with your thoughts. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but stick with it. You'll see the results, but just so you know, it may take a little while for you to see them. Second, try journaling. When you're in solitude, write down your thoughts, feelings, or any problems you're facing. Putting your thoughts on paper can help you make sense of them. It's like giving structure to the chaos in your mind. Once it's written down, you can start to see patterns, understand your emotions better, and even come up with solutions to your problems, which is fucking important. Third, incorporate meditation into your solitude practice. Meditation doesn't have to be complicated. It can simply be sitting in silence and focusing on your breath. As you do this, let your thoughts come and go without judgment. Over time, this practice will help you gain clarity and become more mindful of your emotions and reactions. The most important step is to learn to view problems from different perspectives. This is something I've done for years when I'm in solitude. I personally, or this is what I try to do, I step outside of myself and try to view the situation as if I were a third party. This helps me see things more clearly and come up with solutions that I might not have thought of if I were stuck in my own perspective. I truly believe solitude is one of the most powerful tools for personal growth. It's not about being lonely or isolated. It's about creating intentional space for yourself to think, reflect, and grow. Because in a world that's constantly demanding your attention, solitude gives you the time to focus on what really matters. Your own thoughts, your own emotions, and most importantly, your own journey. So, if you've been feeling lost or overwhelmed, or if you just want to get to know yourself better, start by embracing solitude. Make time for it. Use it to reflect, to write, to meditate, and to gain new perspectives. The more time you spend with yourself, the more you'll understand who you are and what you want from life. And that fucking understanding will change everything. And that's it for today. Thank you for joining me on today. Thank you for joining me today on the Bad Influence podcast. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who might need a little more solitude in their life. Together, we can learn to embrace the quiet moments and use them to fuel our growth. Stay true to yourself, embrace the silence, and keep pushing forward. Until next time, have a great day.